question is probably going to be the easiest one you'll get. Just for the people who don't know you, give them your 60-second biography, if you would.
All right, I'm a school teacher and also a bar owner, and I'm also a council member here in the village of Lyons. I've worked my entire life since I was 13, been doing brick, block, stone, concrete work, and been in the restaurant business since I was 14. I've always worked, and there's a saying that if you want something done, have a busy person do it. They'll always make time for it. So leave something up to a lazy person, it'll never get done.
I like that phrase. Okay, second question. What to you is the single biggest issue facing the 3rd District?
Biggest issue is representation. Having somebody that is working class, having somebody that isn't going to be bought and paid for by corporations and special interests that only seek to represent corporations and special interests. That's a big deal, and that happens on both the right and the left side of the political fence. So for myself, I only seek to represent those that are in the 3rd District. I'm not seeking to represent special interests by any stretch of the imagination. Okay. I cannot be bought, and that's what I've been saying right from the jump. Okay. I don't need to be bought.
When you hear the phrase Black Lives Matter, what do you think of?
I'll tell you what I think of. I'm going down to Rosa Parks Circle tomorrow. Got business cards as such on one end and just who I am on the other. When I say I represent everybody, and the phrase Black Lives Matters is not about all lives matters. It's about the fact that representation has been primarily focused on white middle-aged men of power and wealth and money. Now, up until, even 100 years ago, to this day, the ERA, Equal Rights Act, I'm switching gears a little bit here, but it's the same principle. We are very slow to evolve socially when even 100 years later, after the Equal Rights Act for women, they're still not equal. To this day, we have Republicans that just refuse to pass legislation that makes women equal. And it goes the same thing with disproportionately marginalized individuals or communities, whether it be Black, whether it be LGBTQ, whether it be women. It's disproportionately society that is favoring white males such as myself. So as a school teacher and as a business owner, it is only natural for me to treat all people equally. And at the end of the day, people show their true colors, and people are going to either be kind to one another or they're going to act like idiots to one another.
Okay. Next question. Do you believe police treat blacks and whites equally?
No, I don't. And even myself, and this is going to sound racist, but at the same time, I was a school teacher. I would tell, and I've worked in the projects, I worked in the ghetto, quite literally, both the projects and the ghetto, and they're two different areas of town. They literally are. But I tell my young men, because at times I was the only positive male role model that they would have, I'd say, if ever you interact with the police, always have your hands available so that they can see your hands. That is what they're watching for. Our hands. They're not looking at your face. They're not looking at your chest or the clothes or the shoes that you're wearing. They want to know where your hands are at all time. Never give an officer a reason to escalate a situation. And also, it's one of those things where, as for myself, I don't condone speeding down the highway. However, do I speed down the highway? Yes, I do. I'm guilty of it. I'm not going 20, 30 miles an hour over the speed limit, but maybe 4, 5, 6 miles over the speed limit. And there are times where I may be going 7 miles over the speed limit and I see a car pass me. And I look and I see that maybe a minority of any race, color, creed. And I look over, I'm like, oh crap, that's not a good move. And it's not that they shouldn't be speeding, just as I shouldn't be speeding. What it is that just based on the color of their skin, it's more of a target, unfortunately. But do I feel that people, marginalized communities are being disproportionately pulled over? Yes. Same thing with back in New York, the whole stop and frisk law. that was disproportionately towards minorities as well. So do we need to treat people with more dignity and respect when it comes to race? Yes. When it comes to ethnicity? Yes. When it comes to religion? Yes. We need to treat people as we want to be treated. It's very basic, very simple. And it's a message that falls on deaf ears far too often.
Next question for you. A political reality is that congressional candidates like yourself are impacted by the top of the tickets, especially in presidential election years. How closely do you align yourself with President Trump?
Well, I do have a dump Trump card right here. And as for myself, I made it very clear that I'm not a fan of his. I'm a school teacher and a business owner. I do not reward bad behavior. If you do good, I'm going to tell you did good. If you do bad, well, I'm going to let you know. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And unfortunately, with President Trump, he's had his own personal self-interest at the top of his agenda his whole life. I mean, nothing's changed. And when you have senators over in Maine saying that he learned his lesson after trying to get foreign aid from campaigning, foreign interference through Ukraine, that's something that really happened. And that's something they sought to do. No different than with Russia, no different than with China recently. And he's a bad player. And it's very unfortunate because Trump voters of 2016 were fantastic Americans. They're fantastic Americans in the sense that they wanted change. They wanted to get rid of, well, they didn't want to vote for a career politician. They did not want to vote for business as usual. They wanted to vote for someone that was out to get corruption out of politics. And that was what they were sold with Donald Trump. And unfortunately, he's not that guy. Any of us, myself, you, or any voter, if they were to give him $1 million, he'd be more than happy to put you or me on his cabinet or administration or as a diplomat to some other country. So is he what's best for this country? No. Is he now? No. Is he then? Well, we wanted to believe so. So it's all right to give a man a try, but that's not so much the case. And the senator in Maine was Susan Collins.
Okay. Next question. Are masks necessary and should they be mandatory in the fight against COVID-19?
Yes, indeed. That's a silver bullet for this pandemic is wearing a mask. It's not a matter of a political agenda, whether it be Democrats or Republican. It's a pandemic. People are dying and they're going to continue to die. And I have people push back on me as far as being a business owner, as far as having a restaurant and a bar. People walking in saying, I have a medical condition. And I just have to explain to them that, all right, once you get to your seat, you need to stay there. I can't have you moving around, so on and so forth. They're like, cool. I have a guest coming, is what one person said. I said, just give them a call, make sure that they have a mask. The gentleman said, well, they may have a medical issue also. At that point, it was political. And they demonize the media for saying that the media, it's all left-wing, hyper-liberal, and it's just the talking points which do a disservice to this nation. We can't be pitting ourselves against one another as we currently are in today's political climate. We are all Americans. We all love this country, and we need to work together, whether it be with a mask, whether it be social or economical. It needs to be a time where we start becoming more pragmatic. We start being more sensible with our decisions.
Okay. Next question. It's currently being debated in Congress right now. Would you vote for another direct aid COVID stimulus package to the American people right now?
For the American people, yes. I would not be opposed to that. However, for special interests and big business and super mega churches that clearly don't need the money, I mean, they have profit margins and shareholders to answer to. They don't need government bailout money. They don't need government welfare. And that's an issue that I have with corporations and special interests, is that it's nothing more than corporate welfare. We demonize working class when they need help paying the bills. However, we forget about the fact that of that $3 trillion bill, $2.5 trillion went to corporations and special interests. So The answer is for the people, yes. For the corporation, special interests, no. They can fend for themselves. It's an open market. If they fail, they fail. Your microphone is out.
Had some people
There we
walking
go.
by, and yeah, had some people walking by. Didn't want to interfere with you.
All right.
Next question. Justin Amash still has a lot of supporters who may feel without a home right now. What would you say to them to convince them that you're the best person to succeed in?
Come on down, baby. As far as truth goes and just honesty and, well, the fact of calling a spade, that's Elizabethan. It's not racial, for those that don't know. That's Old English. But for those that want to see transparency, for those that want representation, for those that want to hear somebody say, we got a bad player here, I think it's not an issue that I'm going to be that guy. I think that the other candidates are just towing the line for the Republican base. As for myself, I'll take the base, I'll take the moderates, I'll take center right, center left, I'll take everybody in the 3rd district. And regarding Justin Amash, the problem that I had with Justin Amash is the fact that rather than stay in Republican Party and fix the inequities within the party, he jumped ship and he's like, hey, I'm not a Republican anymore. That does this country and this district a disservice. What leadership is and what it should be is standing up to not only those that you disagree with, but also those that are fighting right next to you. A matter of saying, hey, stop, whether it be police, whether it be politics. I mean, if any one of those other officers in the George Floyd situation said, hey, you need to get up, you need to stop what you're doing, that's leadership. That's leadership. Teamwork is not just following along. And in the Republican Party, he could have been a leader. He could have been a fantastic leader if he was to stand up and say, and let me grab this little prop right here. I myself have read this report, and it's far too dense and far too full of information and mishappenings in regards to the Trump circle and the Trump campaign, that he's not wrong as far as impeachment. It's just that there's too much information here to impeach a president in one term. So I think it's in Trump's best interest to either A, get reelected, or B, resign, let his vice president, Pence, become president, well, number 46, and then have him, I'm battling with a 2-year-old.
I can tell.
All right, but have Pence pardon Trump and his whole family and all his friends so that they can't be prosecuted. That would be in Trump's best interest, because if he does not get reelected, he will be going to prison, as well as many in his cabinet, administration, and a lot of his friends. There are going to be, it's just from the just from the Mueller report, there were 37 that got arrested and not only indicted, but also arrested and had charges brought against them. So, yes, that's where I stand on Amash.
Okay.
Come on home. Vote for Joe.
Okay. Next question. It is about President Trump. He's currently pushing to zero out funding for COVID testing and tracing in the next relief bill. You're not in Congress yet, but do you support cutting federal funding for COVID testing and tracing?
Well, I've said before, he's an idiot. And that's something that would be highly political. And like I said, it is a pandemic. It's not Republican, it's not Democratic, it's a pandemic. And Woodrow Wilson did the same flops as far as handling the Spanish flu 100 years ago. And it's just, we're mirroring the same stupid behavior that we did 100 years ago. If we choose not to pay attention to history, we're going to be forced to repeat it. And that's what we're doing at this moment. So I do not agree with the president on that one.
Okay, a couple of individualized questions for you. Clearly, you have no fondness for the president. And in a recent debate, you called him a bully, con man, among other things, including what you've just said to me here in this interview. What makes you think running against the president in this current environment, when he has 90% support within the party, is going to help you win a GOP primary?
I'll tell you what it is. I got the numbers right here for the 2016 presidential primary. And in that 2016 presidential primary for the 3rd district, he was 3rd place. So what that tells me is that there's a lot of intelligent Republicans in the 3rd district that they do not condone his behavior. He wasn't good enough for us back in 2016 primary election. He's not good for us now. And we had to go through a full cycle of a presidency to, well, get him out of office. So that's who I'm targeting. I'm not pandering to the base. I'm not pandering to hyper-Trumpism by any stretch of imagination. I let people know exactly where I stand. And when it comes to past presidents and Republican leadership, as I said before, whether it be Bush, I'm talking about senior, or Reagan, or Ford, who's a local boy, they'd all be considered liberals by today's standards. They'd be liberals. And I don't think that people do enough history, or maybe in the 3rd district, they know exactly who we are when it comes to our Republican Party. This is not the Trump Party.
Okay, given what you just said about past presidents and how they would be viewed today, you say that you are running as a fiscally conservative Democrat.
Whoa, easy there.
Sorry, no, you're running as a fiscal. I reversed my question here. That's what happens when I ad-lib and I just don't read what I have written. So I'm just going to read what I have written. One of your campaign signs behind you has a rainbow background, and I assume that's in support of LGBTQ population. Now, given that, and your distaste for the president, and everything else you've just told me, why not run as a fiscally conservative Democrat rather than a socially liberal Republican?
See, that's a fantastic question. I was supporting drag syndrome, which got kicked out of Peter Myers's venue because all of a sudden he became hyper right wing and you can't have drag shows at your venue. I was out there getting signatures saying, hey, I'm running for Congress and I'm a Republican. And they jump back and say, I'm not signing anything for a Republican. I'd say, I'm in support of this show. I'm a fiscal conservative, social moderate. And to answer your question, because I've been asked this question a million times, and the answer is very simple. I've been a Republican my entire life. I'm very money conscious. I mean, I don't live beyond my means. Everything I own is paid for. I don't take out loans. I don't take out debt. If I cannot afford it, well, I just don't get it. I do without, and I manage. And I think the government should be the same way. However, in regards to that question, with being a Republican, I've been a Republican my whole life, and it's not me that's changed, it's the party that's changed. I mean, even back in 2016, whether it be Mitch McConnell or Lindsey Graham or any other Republican, they were all never Trumpers. They didn't even want him on stage. And the reason being is because he does not fit the model. He's much more abrasive, much more divisive than someone that wants to just represent the people. And am I big on business, big on money? Yes, I am. I'm a businessman. I have a business degree. But at the same time, am I big on military? Absolutely. I believe we need a strong defense. And with that being said, that's pretty much been the primary model of the Republican Party for 100 years. Business and strong military. And you could say that Republican Party has evolved, but to some degree has devolved into being a much more abrasive party. And that's something that it could have been rectified, and it was going to be rectified in 2009 after my party, the Republican Party, lost the presidential election to Barack Obama. And what happened is that in the 2009 Republican National Convention, the talking points were hey, what we really need to do is be more inclusive as a party. However, Mitch McConnell wanted to make it very clear that, well, we're going to make sure that this is a one-term president and that everything that he does fails. And that was McConnell's leadership. And then that brought about the whole Tea Party situation, which at its core was a good cause, anti-corruption and just pro-Constitution, pro-America. And those are fantastic ideas. However, it just got very ugly and divisive, and the party has maintained that course ever since. And with a Republican such as myself, it's my duty to change that trajectory. And I'm not saying that we have to be hyper progressive. What I'm saying is this, is that we don't have to push people away. If we truly feel that people need less regulation, let them marry who they want to marry. Let them have health insurance. Let women have birth control. It's no-brainers. I mean, what a woman does with her body is her business. What people do in the bedroom is their business. Well, I think that these are non-issues. They're non-issues, but they get the base all rallied, and it's unfortunate.
Okay. Let me follow up with that, and then I'm going to have your last question. This is my one follow-up. You said what a woman should do with her body is her business. Are you a pro-choice Republican?
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Even in 1976, the first time that abortion was ever mentioned in the Republican Party, they said that it should be a moral and individual decision. And they left it at that. That was the first time abortion's ever been mentioned in the GOP talking points. And I think that stands true to this day. It should be a non-issue, but it does get people fired up. And it brings about a whole lot of misinformation. And what a lot of people don't realize is that over half of the abortions that are accounted for or more are miscarriages, because technically and medically, a miscarriage is an abortion.
Okay.
Naturally.
Okay. My last question for you, and this one is all yours. We've covered a lot of different topics, but the last question is, what is one issue we have not talked about, if you can think of one, that you care about and you want to mention?
Holding our representatives accountable. And I've mentioned that before in regards to Goose-Gander bill, which requires Congress, well, House and also Senate, to the lowest form of health insurance that we the people currently have, whether it be GoFundMe care, whether it be emergency room care, whether it be the ACA or Obamacare, which has been gutted. That's one of them. And then another bill that I'd be very interested in seeing would be, let's see if I have it here somewhere. Right here. All right. One of the bills, I don't have it, but
yeah, okay.
a ready for war bill, which would require everyone in the House and the Senate to have the be able to pass basic training or physical training that's required of the U.S. Air Force. It's really not all that difficult. I mean, you don't have to be a true athlete to pass Air Force physical training. So that being the step one. Step two would be 1/12 of Congress, House and Senate, would be required to serve at time of war or any foreign event, whether it be war or any foreign affair to that nature, 1/12. So for no more than 29 days, every person in the House and the Senate is required to serve at the front lines next to enlisted men. And that give a different perspective on how ready we are to want to battle if our representatives are side by side by those are pretty much just walking into bullets. I think that we have a different perspective on how we go about war. And I think that would be a pretty fair requirement for the House and Senate. I mean, if you want to be a patriot, pardon the language, but get your ass to the front lines and represent and serve as you're being asked to. I mean, as for myself, I also think that Congress and Senate is being paid far too much. I mean, as for myself, I've already stated that I'd be willing to donate 25% of not only my congressional salary, but also what I make as a business owner. It's one of those things where you don't do politics to make money. And you may say, hey, we got a billionaire president. That man's costing us more than he's ever made in his life. If we were to see his taxes, it'd probably show that he's never really been a billionaire, and he's not one at the moment. So, I mean, I'm not a big fan of money in politics.